Welcome everybody to the APJ and Americas Strategy MVP Advisory Council webinar. There was one held yesterday for EMEA and Americas, which the recording will be available soon. It was really good. Recommend you check that out. This is the SMAC Strategy MVP Advisory Council members. So most of those people will be familiar to you. We've got a new member, which is awesome, Don Dutton, who's based in the Americas, actually on the East Coast. So we are here to support you. Basically, reach out to us for suggestions if you have suggestions for strategy MVP activities. And the thing that I want to think about when I say this, information on how to become a strategy MVP, SMAC is not just for existing strategy MVPs. Everything that we do is around building future strategy MVPs and helping you build your nomination and your application for this year. So if you have people who want to become a strategy MVP, we are really, really happy to talk to them and help them. Hold on, I've got to press the admit button. There's Ken. So reach out to us for any of those things. You can either do it by emailing us at smac@sitecore.com. There is a LinkedIn group, which we are happy to invite anybody into, or just reach out to any of us individually on LinkedIn, or I don't know, if you know who we are, you can probably work out how those email addresses work as well. So the agenda for today, I just want to give you a reminder about your applications. Don't forget to get those in. There's a little bit of a change in how that works. 2023 webinar topic submissions and updates. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to jump straight into our speakers, which is who you've come to hear about, not about me. So the MVP applications, are available from November 1st to November 30th. You can read all that stuff. I'm not going to read it all to you. If you would like to, the application process has changed a little bit. There is a PDF available of how to do it. If you want that, reach out. We can send it to you, no problems. But get those applications in. Make sure that you fill them in properly. You've all been told this, but, again, happy to help or happy to advise on how to do it. But, detail is really helpful. Don't make us have to do the work, but put in the information of exactly what you've done and when you've done it. Looking ahead to 2023, so the SMAC team got together briefly but productively at Symposium and talked about what we want to do. And we want to focus on the webinars. The newsletters kind of dropped off. It was a lot of work putting it together and didn't really get a lot of, feedback on it or a lot of click-throughs or anything like that. So we really want to focus on the webinars because we feel like this is a really good way to amplify your voices and provide useful information. So the question that we have is, what topics would you like to hear? The themes have been working really well. If there's something that you would like us to say, hey, who wants to present on this, then we're really interested in those suggestions. And the other thing, as I said, is that anyone can attend or present to these webinars. It is open to anybody. It's kind of a virtual strategy smug, if you like, which is what Greg used to call them when we were running those down in Melbourne. So invite your colleagues, co-workers, friends, family, grandma I'm sure would love to see this. Well, you can absolutely invite your grandmother to come watch you present. That's no problems whatsoever. 2023 webinar schedule, exact dates to come, but we're thinking February, May, September, and as we are now, early November, which gives you just time to sneak it in before your MVP application. So let us know if you think there's particular topics that, you'd like to learn more about or maybe even present. So today's speakers, we have Walt up first talking about CDP and Personalize in the real world, which will be interesting because I don't personally live in the real world. Greg Baxter is going to be talking to us about the Composable Customer all the way from Queensland in Australia. If you're lucky, you're going to hear some of that bird song in the background that I heard from him a little bit earlier and made me very homesick. And then Jana is going to talk to us about the transition from Sitecore XP to CDP Personalize, the why, what, when, and how, without an additional quote mark on the end of it. I'm not quite sure why that's still there. So with that said, I would hand over to Walt. I would really, we'd love to get questions. Please put them in the chat and then we'll answer them at the end of all three sessions. That's just my tricky way of keeping you on board. So Walt, do you want to take over? There you go.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, I'll take it. Does that look okay?
Looks perfect to me.
All right, I've got another title for you, Strategy Accelerators for your first CDP and Personalize launch, but both are fine. This is about 14, 15 minutes at a blistering pace, so I'll keep it going, and I can cut off the last section if I have to, so just let me know. So I'm Walt Raleigh, and I hope that these recipes, if you will help you communicate faster with your teams. And this is all adapted from real production scenarios. So these things have at least worked at least one time. So let me know if it works for you. You'll see some templates in here and just some concepts that I think you could adapt and make your own, if you will. So let's just look a little bit at current state of the industry. I always like to talk about this. According to McKinsey, the success rate of digital transformation is 30%. And what I see is one root cause of challenges being like missing requirements. And these things on the left over here is what our stakeholders are challenged with. They're busy, not sure what the great use case is. I need someone to help bring some ideas to the table to kind of get things going. So the idea behind this is it would help settle the team because you'd have a baseline going into your workshops with these stakeholders of here's some examples of how you might do it, and use that as like a checklist, and you feel like you have a good kind of vertical slice implementation to at least get it out to market, try it out, get some feedback, and then maybe move on to future phases. So that's the idea behind this. The agenda is we'll talk about selecting it in the first place. We'll talk a little bit about Google Analytics and Tag Manager specifically and how you run up against that and what you might say. And then we'll walk through kind of the 4 pillars, excuse me, of the implementation from getting data in and then kind of reporting on it on the back end. So let's just skip right through that section divider. Okay, so you can't implement CDP and Personalize if the stakeholder doesn't buy it, right? So usually there's like a platform selection or that kind of thing that has to happen, at least to get it into the mix. So I wanted to point that out. Back in the day, how we would do this is take like one juggernaut and juggernaut number 2 and number 3, right? And we'd have like 20 decision criteria and we'd bake them off and come up with a winner. But now these composable strategies require composable decision criteria. And that's what you see here is I've got basically 2 different workloads, and there can be many more workloads, but I just chose these 2. And you can divvy these up and map them against different platforms. That way, if you're in a scenario where you're picking and choosing like a best of breed scenario, you can still work Personalize and CDP into the mix, have it focus on what it's good at and shine in that area. And then it also gives space for the technical kind of overarching decision criteria you often see, like maybe IT is dictating that you have to have SaaS or there's some compliance thing that they want, and then that would be measured against all platforms. So this is just a little bit about the front end of getting that platform into the ecosystem. Then the next step after the decision criteria is to create these scenarios. And again, if you've got something like Sitecore that has many of the hexagons, if you will, Sitecore can cover an entire scenario top to bottom, right? But then, you may get these other questions about, well, what if, this other CDP or this other, thing that I saw, this other JavaScript drop in or whatever. You can get those smaller tools and kind of make up this 3rd scenario or 4th and 5th scenarios where you work in these other, what would it look like to have Sitecore and these 2 other things or these 4 other things, right? And that just helps, again, I think set the stakeholders at ease that they didn't rush into something and they thought through it. We're getting a little feedback from somebody. Is that a question? No. Anyway. Sorry?
I think it was just a bit of feedback. I'll just mute that one.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so anyway, with these scenarios in place, it helps you kind of tell a story about, we thought through the decision criteria, this is what it might look like. And obviously you don't want to have like 20 scenarios because it's like analysis paralysis. And then you can work other workloads into this. So if you haven't seen my article, 6 steps to creating a composable digital marketing roadmap, you'll see some of those other examples in here that could slot into that table. All right, let's keep moving. Neighboring with Google. So Tag Manager and Analytics specifically, and do we need it? Is it duplicative? Do we use them both? I think using Sitecore's diagrams is a good way to kind of speed up your own analysis and lean on that authority. And then what I do here is I layer in this color coding to try to map it to what I'm hearing from the stakeholders. So you can see on the left over here, Google Analytics kind of has a home. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's doing those things, but then you've got these core workloads of Personalize and CDP. And then you can see the stakeholders mapped to each of those. In this case, stakeholder number 1 was interested in event tagging and then getting that into a warehouse and creating their own reports. Stakeholder 2 wanted to also do the tagging, but is much more interested in decisioning and personalization. So this is a nice way to just take something that's already been created, layer in what you're hearing, and then kind of feed that back to your stakeholders or customers, whatever you're working with. This is just another diagram example. Again, you can adapt these examples. You can use other diagrams you find, do the same thing. But we see both stakeholders are leveraging this stream for events. But then they have different channel priorities. So that's what this diagram does a little different. Stakeholder 1 is interested in a website, where the other stakeholder is interested in mobile apps. So just to wrap up, neighboring with Google, this is a little bit of a bake-off slide, if you will, and you could get like really crazy with a bake-off if you want, or a battle card, depending on how you look at it. But what we're pointing out here is Sitecore is friendly to get data in and then also to get data out, right? But and then on the flip side with Google, easy to get data in, getting data out, a little bit of a different story. But let's face it, their dashboards are really cool, very feature rich. So this is a good way to point out in a proactive manner kind of the pros and cons or the differences between the tools and get the stakeholders comfortable with using both, talking about both, mapping their requirements to both. Okay, I'll take a breath and move on to these implementation examples. So again, we talked about the 4 pillars. I'm going to tag some events. I'm going to light up my customer profile. I'm going to do some personalization, and then I need to report on all of that. So again, this is intended to be like your MVP vertical slice. It doesn't light up every feature in the platform, right? But it exercises enough of it that you feel like you're using the tool and you're starting to get some feedback on how it works. So let's break each of those down and go through kind of like implementation example, or, you know, in the real world, how did this look? So we'll talk about event tagging first. So how we solve this is it's a React application. Basically, there's a service in there. So 1 event, but 2 destinations, right? So, but using a unified data layer. So one goes to Tag Manager, the other goes to Personalize and CDP. And there's all the event handlers you'd expect to see, like clicking links, submitting a form, so on and so forth. The data layer is a nice initial step to kind of draw out the KPIs and the measurement plan that they may have put down in a document, just to bring that to life. You know, this is the kind of stuff we would capture. And then basically on the CDP side, we're making heavy use of the EXT field, right? So I can take this whole JSON and just dump it in there, and it's very flexible. The other cool thing I'll point out is when you do this, I like to use the term close to. The event data is close to our decision processing, right? So when I'm doing decision model, I know, you know, if they've clicked on this thing or whatever. Whereas in a competitive scenario, a competitor might be trying to say, well, you know, you can go over to this other system to find out if that happened, and then you can come back and make the decision. And that's kind of a performance hit there. So I think it tells a good story for, again, adopting Personalize and CDP along with, this kind of goes back to the neighboring with Google discussion. You don't have to pick one or the other, but do the GTM stuff, but then also do the event tagging and Personalize and CDP. Okay, so let's move on to guest data. So this example here, this is a flow of a patient that just started taking a new drug. So this is kind of like a life sciences vertical kind of thing. And basically they're Googling something they were just prescribed, and they're trying to get more information on it to find out what's going on, get a little more information. You could change this content to adapt it to another vertical, should be no problem. But it helps the product owner visualize us using this new tool that they're being exposed to in conjunction with their design, right? So you've got the whole flow here. I do a search. It tries to get me to register. I'm answering some questions, which is kind of like an explicit personalization type of thing. And then after I sign in, I have some resources that are personalized to me based on the tags that those content items have. So then another way to look at that from the data perspective is to then plot that data across each step in all these different systems. Again, because that's the other thing that's kind of like mystifying to the stakeholders is we have, we're storing data in all these different places, right? Data is cheap to store, and that's what we do now. So I've got a back office system, maybe like a CRM. I've got Google storing stuff. I've got Sitecore storing stuff. Do I need to store it everywhere? What's going on here? So this just kind of lets them off the hook here by plotting what's happening at each step, and then color coding, like on the red is where the changes are. So basically engagement is increasing, and we're starting to profile them and put them into a segment. And then you'll see as we get into, I think it's step 4 or 5, they self-identify with the registration. And that's when we take the key from Sitecore and we stamp it in the back office system. And now we can enrich the data in both directions, right? In this case, this back office system has all kinds of patient data that's being funneled in from other healthcare related systems like doctor visits and stuff. So anyway, that can help inform marketers because you know more about, are they seeing their doctor and have they tried a secondary medication? Do they have any reactions and all that kind of stuff? The other cool thing I'll point out is there's no PII here in Sitecore by using this foreign key approach. So pretty straightforward, but from a compliance standpoint, it's a pretty big win and set some people at ease. Okay, web experience. So these are just some examples of common web experience requirements, recommended tasks that change based on the persona of who you are, recommended articles, same thing. I'm going to show different articles for somebody who's new to treatment versus a treatment adopter, if you will. And then the search results having a special treatment for if they've clicked on that page before, maybe they had it in their favorites, something like that. So then what we're doing here is we're taking kind of like the requirement and we're putting like the solution on the other side, again, just to demystify it a little bit. We're showing the flow now of the data from the bottom up. We're showing the enrichment from the back office. From the top, we're showing the visitor hitting the browser and starting to have their event sent to those 2 locations, which I already showed you. And now we separate Personalize and CDP. We're Personalize doing the real-time personalization, and the event data and guest profile data is all flowing down into the CDP data structure. Okay, so that was web experiences. So let's wrap up with reports consulting. So the reports can't be customized, right? So to be proactive here, what I recommend is getting just kind of a list of all the reports that are there and just kind of like walking through them and mapping the requirements back to what's there and pointing out any gaps and figure out what do you want to do with those gaps. Do you want to try to use Google for that or build a Power BI thing and go all that route? There's different options, right? A custom page, you can build something like that. So this is basically just a series of templates that you can use to really just kind of walk through like a little bit of a workshop, an education session, show them the filters, why you would use it, map some of their data to the filters. That helps kind of bring it to life and have it make more sense for them. This table here is just a bunch of reports. This is all from docs.sitecore.com. You're basically trying to figure out, is this applicable for their requirement? And are there any gaps or adjustments required? I already talked about that a little bit. I'll just keep cruising through here. Again, it's just a template. This is the segments report. Then you have the traffic report, and you have the list of event names and the UTM parameter examples. This is pretty cool because you might discover a missing requirement here once they see these reserved event names, if you didn't talk about them earlier. So this is a good way to, which of these names are we using? You might put that into report filter, and that might answer some of the questions you're hoping to tackle in your measurement. And then the UTM discussion is always good to kind of draw out how their campaigns work and what their taxonomy looks like, or lack thereof sometimes. Again, just another template. Other reports here, good to go through and triage these, talk about what they do, and will any of those be helpful for their requirements. And then to wrap that workshop up, this tech approach template, which basically takes their KPIs or requirements and maps it to an approach, right? So I didn't fill all these out because there's still work to do here for the person who wants to use it. This funnel requirement at the bottom is pretty fun. Give me a count of people who clicked on learn more, And then of those, how many clicked on registration, and then how many of those actually signed in and engaged with the site. You know, is there a dashboard that does that, or are there some gaps? And this is what it's helping us map their needs to something concrete of how we're going to solve it, which again, I think just helps with the clarity and keeping the project team moving and communicating and all the different parts that build these platforms working in harmony together. Okay, so hopefully I finished on time, but that is what I know so far, and I hope you find it helpful.
Thanks, Walt. I'm going to confess I took a couple of screenshots, so I'm definitely coming back for the recording of this to dig into it in a bit more detail. Mr. Baxter, are you back from making your cup of tea and ready to go?
I'm the first mute offense of the morning. I am here. I am ready to go. I am teed up.
Go for it.
I will just share my screen. And hopefully you'll be looking at my hotel website.
Yeah, it looks like fun. Can we go on holidays there?
Yeah, we can. Just before we start, I'm Greg Baxter, the head of growth for ASIC. I'm a 5-year Sitecore MVP and a long-term fanboy. I will confess, I've been around the ecosystem for, I guess, nearly 2 decades now. And I absolutely love taking customers from a publishing mindset through to an engagement mindset. And I really loved some of the things Walt said before about some of the barriers to entry of getting customers to actually buy the product. And I'm a real fan of a kind of a quick win approach. Many times I've done the big boil the ocean thing and made dozens of goals and lots of things and you know, built a very rigorous playbook, which is great. But another approach might be just to focus on one use case and absolutely show an executive what it looks like for their customers when all of this kind of nebulous stuff is engaged. So this is really the customer journey from acquisition through to advocacy, all fast-tracked. And the other thing I want you to realize is this demo was built in 5 days by 3 people that had never used the tools before and did not read the manual. So somebody, and that would be me, said we should do this at SUGCON. My team groaned a little bit, but we all dug in and literally got it done. And, you know, really happily it worked. So the tools are quite intuitive, apart from, you know, the amazing amount of power. But no artist came anywhere near this demo. So it looks a little, you know, like a template bought off Template Monster, which of course it is. And I chose a hotel metaphor to do this. And the 2 things that you're going to see really happen is a lot of personalization around the hero image, and then a lot of personalization around this book your holiday form. So we're personalizing just these 2 placeholders, which again I've found is a really nice way to get customers to do a short, sharp project that helps them onboard their skills, but it also shows the executive what can be achieved. So it's a hotel website. It's going to personalize quite a bit. So I'm just going to open another tab. And I'm going to go to Ali Davids, who is somebody who has been on the site and been retargeted in Facebook. She's obviously hit the website at some point, but not engaged. And she fits the kind of use group that's required for this. And she sees an ad, free airline to an island paradise, and clicks on it. So we're using a kind of a UTM scenario to do this. The event tagging stuff and campaign stuff. And you can see that straight away the hero image is swapped out to say travel in style to our island paradise, nice big lush engaging image. But also really interesting, our form has swapped out. She's not ready to book a hotel yet, but we're just stepping her along the journey. So I will complete the form. She is pretty keen to get this freebie if possible. Ali Davids, and she is alidavids2000@gmail.com. And she enters the competition. So what I really wanted to show was XM, Personalize, Sitecore Send, and CDP all working to curate a path to essentially purchase. So I wanted to show a total cross-channel kind of engagement here. So that's happened. She's entered into the competition, and I will just show you very quickly what kind of happened there. So we used Moosend to do this, or Sitecore Send rather, I should say, to do this. And we built just 2 things. We built a couple of subscription tools. So the first one was the kind of air competition one that you just saw. So I did this part personally, and I just jumped in and started building. At the end of one day, we had all of the moving parts to do this, and it worked, you know, maybe first or second try, right? So I'll just jump through to the editor to have a quick look at the tools that let us make these forms. And of course, I'm not a graphic artist. I'm not even close to a graphic artist. And it is, of course, a demo, so it all looks a little bit demo-ish. But you can see just by click, yeah.
Greg, we're not seeing the screen share at the moment.
Ah, that's not so good. I thought I could Alt-Tab, but I will. Close my share tray.
Honestly, it wouldn't be a webinar without a tech fail.
Ah, yeah, it would be.
There you go.
As long as the demo doesn't fail, I'll be happy, and as long as I don't do it again. So anyway, I've just jumped into Moose End, and I've jumped into editing the screen. So you can see as I click on fields over on the right, I get the ability to create all of this stuff. And it's really, really very, very simple to do. So the other thing that we created in here, I'll just carry on and take myself to my home page, was we had to create a couple of marketing automation pieces to trigger personalization and to trigger the flow. So if I just jump into automation really quickly and go down to the competition entry, check out our amazing rooms, because we have somebody in a competition now, we have their email address. So what we want to do is we want to add them to a list, which was really easy to do. And then again, in the editor, really simple to create an email. And this is kind of the next step we want Ali Davids to do. So I think I'm going to have to unshare this and then reshare, because that seems to be the way of it. So I'm now going to jump through to Ali's email address, Ali's email. Tell me that you can see Gmail there, Alison.
Yes, 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 yes.
All right, so we have the tech fail worked out, which is awesome. And you can see an email came through just a couple of minutes ago, and the email is basically trying to get people to go to a honeymoons or to look at different rooms. And of course, we're going to profile people based on the room that they're looking at. So I'm just going to open this in an incognito window. It drives into the site to show the honeymoon suite. And of course, our customer has now been, well, two things have happened. Our customer is being profiled as potentially being interested in a honeymoon experience, but it's also based on this page load landing the next marketing automation piece, which is an email out to basically say, check out our amazing services. So the thinking is a customer's come in, they've looked at a lovely room, they're probably going to want to know what adjacent services that the hotel offers. So the next email is kind of based around that. Interesting to note that if I go back to my home page or I click around the site or come back on another visit, my personalization on my home page is now working completely in symphony with my experience. So the home page is now talking about, you know, luxury resorts for newlyweds, and our form has swapped out to now sort of get to the, you know, the pointy end conversion of the experience, so that this person can go through a booking experience and become a customer. So if I jump out of that and I do my switch over again, stop sharing, start sharing, go back to email, another email has come in, which is check out our luxury services. So 0 minutes ago, and the reason this is super powerful is that customers are 130% more likely to click on an email that is delivered in the moment when they're making decisions, because there's a perception that you've caught them at the right moment, but there's also a wider perception that they're probably getting a really curated and personalized experience. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening. So if I right click on Spa and open a new incognito window, and tell me you can see this, Alison? Or do I have to swap out?
We're still seeing the email at the moment.
All right. Teams, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So off we go. And now what we're seeing is services with a smile, book your holiday. And, you know, what I've done here is chosen an out-of-the-box personalized tactic. So I'm just going to refresh this page a couple of times, and what I'm simulating is somebody going from this page to look at, lower level offers and so forth, or coming back a few times. They click around it a little bit, and they finally come back, maybe the third or fourth click. You can, of course, determine that. And a book your holiday honeymoon room today piece pops up, which is really great. So I go through to book now, and another automated piece from Personalize is there, basically saying book now, it's too late, or they can streamline that kind of effect and so forth, and they can go through and complete that process to book. So this story flow is that they do in fact book. We did not have the time or the luxury of actually building out a booking form and making that whole piece kind of complete. But we did, what we really wanted to show was the user journey. So if I return home now, we've still got the wedding thing, and we've got a call to action saying, now that you're booked, share your holiday itinerary with a friend. So what we've really done is construct quite a simple user journey in very, very little time, using Sitecore XM, CDP, Sitecore Send, and Personalize to create just a one kind of scenario user flow, so that people could, or a customer could see an onboarding process and engage in a really short project in order to build some personalization out that would not be so long and complex that it would sort of drain everybody's will to live, because some of these things can be pretty complicated. And it's a really nice way in a new customer scenario for them to be able to really see the effect of personalization from their customer's perspective. And of course, in Personalize, we really built one template that changed this hero image, for example. And then we were just able to clone that, change the image, type into the text field what we wanted it to say, change the call to action. So it was really super rapid to build once we'd sort of done the plumbing around CDP. And of course, CDP captures, an enormous amount of information here. And I will take the time just to jump in and take a quick look at all of that stuff. So stop share, start share, really got this thing down now, and jump into CDP, which I'm hoping you can see. And we have our guests there. We have Ali Davids. So I will just click on her, and we can see an overview of all of the behavior. We can see that she's a customer. So I can filter this to show essentially visitors, but I'll just fast map that. We can see devices. We can see daily usage. At the top level, we can see segments. Because this is a demo, we did not build out, a whole bunch of goals and all of that sort of stuff, because I really put my team under a bunch of pressure in a very short amount of time to get this built. But we have finessed this demo and showed it live to a couple of new Sitecore prospects. And in the experience of the pitch, where they see an awful lot of PowerPoint and an awful lot of, discussion about something that they maybe can't see in their mind in their own terms, this is a moment in a, maybe a 2-hour pitch where I noticed the executive really leant forward. And it didn't matter whether those stakeholders were technical or marketing. This was a thing where they started seeing stuff. And once we have these templates built, we can very, very easily swap out the content on this site and have a vertical demo. So I can go in and I can see the timeline, device, browser, operating system, session details, all of that lovely stuff. And I can go through and see the properties of the customer data that we're starting to capture. So we're starting to capture stuff. It will be added to. We haven't put a title in there, but we could use CDP and Personalize to run up a survey. We would start to personalize her experience, on the island. So really, it's just a very fast way to onboard a customer, take a customer from an unknown to a known profile, and then use, three Sitecore composable tools to really curate the kind of experience there. So that is my demo. I promise no slides, and just a real live kind of example of what this looked like. And I think we did that pretty well, and I think that it worked really well. And it is very, very nice to be able to turn around a presentation of personalization for a customer I just talk to them and ask for a use case, or to be honest, there are very few customers in the world that don't have an acquisition use case, and they know it's a kind of made up experience, but it's really important for them to see what personalization does in the wild, in my view. So I think that's my demo. I think I'm pretty close to right on time, Alison.
Yep, that looks about good. I had no idea the ASIC team ran hotels, let alone that they had so much talent in making swans out of towels. I'm very impressed. Please tell Jason. Okay, Jana, are you up? Hi. All right, I'll let you take over. Thank you. Jana, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Hi.
That's okay. Hi.
Now you can hear me, right?
Yep, now I can hear you, and we can also, ooh, I remember that. Okay, go for it.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, I will be showing slides after Greg's no promise of slides on his side, but you've seen a demo, so I think slides are fair now. And I'll be walking you through how to get from XP to CDP and Personalize. So the way I'll do it is to talk about what, why, when, and how. A quick overview of me. I am the Director of Digital Strategy at RDA. Have been doing Sitecore for over 10 years, have worked with both Greg and Walt, so and both have been my mentors at different times in my career. I'm a 4-time Sitecore Strategy MVP. I'm certified in CDP and Personalize, and I even have expertise in some other personalization platforms. What are we talking about when we talk about moving from XP to CDP and Personalize? It's really important to make sure that we're talking about the right things. So if you're using the marketing application section within Sitecore, those are the pieces that you need to figure out how to move to CDP and Personalize. All the other stuff is what Sitecore calls XM. So so that other stuff you can still keep using even after moving from XP to XM. So that includes obviously personalization. If you're using Email Experience Manager, FXM, List Manager, Marketing Automation, analytics within Sitecore, campaigns, profiling, optimization, or Path Analyzer. So what is CDP then? So CDP is the tool that, and just to be clear, we call it CDP and Personalize, but CDP and Personalize are two separate products within Sitecore, or you can buy it together. So CDP specifically is the product to get all of your data, your customer data into it, and then you can use it to have the reporting of the data or send it to other tools to do stuff with that data. Personalize is so without CDP, you don't really have customer data within Personalize. It's more looking at experimentation and decisioning. You can have interaction data about your user, and then using that information to quickly trigger something within another tool. And then both of them together create a Smart Hub CDP, and they're really powerful when you have both of them together in the same tool. So why move from Sitecore XP to CDP and Personalize if anyone's still considering this? There are these 4 big reasons. So CDP and Personalize is a SaaS tool, unlike XP. So basically, the infrastructure and upgrades are not your problem. It becomes Sitecore's problem, and that's great news for anybody that's been stuck within the upgrades and infrastructure of XP. And it simplifies your footprint, so that can save you a lot of money from that aspect, and not just money, but personnel complications and having people that know these tools really well and what they do behind the scenes. It gives you an omni-channel experience, whereas XP is more focused on the experience within the website itself. It can be the quarterback of your entire CX ecosystem and can create end-to-end customer journeys. The performance is really fast. I know with using XP, I've had challenges of keeping in mind performance versus the personalization that you want to do. So that alleviates some of those problems. And then scale, because you can have these one-to-one content interactions with your customers rather than focused on rule-based interactions and just, a few of them. And then Sitecore has some cool customer stories that you can go on their site and see, but these are some that I pulled out where Viva talked about having a 50% increase in conversions and 158% increase in click-throughs, higher revenue. Insignia Financial talked about higher engagement using CDP and Personalize. And then the scale, again, Viva supported 10 million simultaneous visitors while doing it. So imagine what that could mean for you. All right, so when is the right time to take on CDP and Personalize or this move? So the first thing I would say, and I went with the persona experience, given we're talking about personalization. So the main question is, what type of XP client are you? And I've come across these three main types of XP clients, so I wanted to talk about them. The first one I called Personalizer Penelope. Basically, this type of client uses XP in a business critical format, all of those experiences that Greg just showed, but with XP. And they use experience analytics, path analyzer. They're running personalization or A/B tests. They have experience profile in their CDP and as their CDP, and they're doing marketing automation or EXM for their campaigns. You may have Fiat Flynn, or you may be Fiat Flynn. That's the person that has bought XP as their Ferrari, but are driving it like their Fiat. So they use basically none of the features or very few of the features of XP. And if you took it away, it wouldn't be that big a deal for them. And the question for them really is, why have they never used XP? And, how will they create this emotional, personalized, omni-channel experiences with their customers and helping them get there? And then our third type of persona is Ryder Riley. So Ryder Riley is part of our larger Sitecore ecosystem, and they're along for the ride. So basically, like, they may have a site, like a franchise site within a larger ecosystem, or a business unit site within a larger ecosystem, and they have to use XP. They really have no other option. So if you are Fiat Flynn, there is no reason why you should not be going from XP to XM now. You should do it right away. And you need to make the case for personalization because, in Sitecore CDP and Personalize, even if you're the type of customer, or you have the type of customer that says, look, I just have a brochure site, or I just have a transactional site, it's no longer just about the site, it's about the entire customer journey. And there is really no reason that your digital experience should not be personalized. Nobody wants to have experiences that are tailored to everyone. If you're Ryder Riley, basically, I would say in that case, maybe it does make sense to keep using XP because you should use the tools that you have at your disposal. And while maybe your organization, needs to have been made the argument for CDP and Personalize, you can showcase how you can get to know your customers and their interactions and be that organization to make the argument. And while doing that, still make the argument for having that omni-channel journey. And then finally, if you're Personalizer Penelope, Sitecore XP really works well in this area of your personalization journey, where you're basically doing on-site personalization and moving into some areas of customer data platform, like having a few offers that are targeted to a user. But as you start maturing up the journey, you're going to start seeing those issues that I talked about with the why. You're not going to be able to do one-to-one personalization. You're not going to be able to do the next best action and create an omni-channel journey. So as you start moving into this area, you're going to need to move from XP into something more mature. So how do you do it? And really the rest of this presentation is for our personalizer Penelope. I forgot her persona. Personalizer Penelope. That's who this is. The rest of our presentation is for, because like I said, if you're Fiat Flynn, do it right away. If you're Ryder Riley, make the argument. But Personalizer Penelope should be making this move. So here are some steps that you should be taking into account. The first step is understanding what you're using in XP today, because you may not be using everything, and what that means in CDP and Personalize and in other tools, and what does that translation look like. You need to figure out what your aims are for CDP and Personalize, because if you're just going to use it like XP, then why are you making the move? You need to start using all of those mature features of CDP and Personalize. Interactions that you have in XP, so those are your goals and events and outcomes, and your engagement value. They don't move into CDP and Personalize via a batch process, which means as soon as you think about making that move with CDP and Personalize, set up your instance and start tracking your events and goals within CDP and Personalize immediately. Because you're not going to have the historical data, so you want to start to create data within CDP and Personalize. And then you need to move your contacts, you need to move your personalization and tests. We'll talk a little bit about how to track engagement and what to do about Path Analyzer. And then obviously, email and marketing automation is not CDP and Personalize, that's Send, like Greg talked about. So that's where you want to move those aspects if you're using that. Here is a table of what things are in XP and what they are in your composable product suite and which features you need to use. The table is from Dylan Young's blog, but I have adapted it. So for example, experience analytics, some of it exists in CDP and some needs to move into your analytics product. Experience profile will be very much enhanced within as your guest profile in CDP. Path Analyzer doesn't really exist in CDP and Personalize. You can obviously use the data lake within CDP to export that data, but if you're using GA4, the concept of explorations works really well as your Path Analyzer. Personalization is obviously personalized, and you will use web or full stack experiences along with the decision model there. Experimentation and testing is also personalized with the full web or full stack experiments. Profile cards and pattern cards can be set up and personalized as the decision model, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Your taxonomy moves into CDP and Personalize as well as into CDP as well as your analytics product. A taxonomy is just descriptions, right, of different things that happen. So you want to have that metadata in there. And then campaign tracking can both move into CDP and your analytics products via UTM parameters. Engagement value can be created as guest data attributes if you really want to, but to be honest, I would not recommend that. I would actually recommend using engaged events within your, or use engagement within your analytics suite. And if you're using GA4, you can use engaged events in there. So moving contacts is going to be your biggest challenge here in moving everything into CDP and Personalize. And you do want to think about, how far you want to go. What is that date? That is your cutoff date. You export the data from XConnect, and I have a link here that you can follow to do that. And then you move all that data as a batch file into CDP, and here's a link to follow that. And then talking about personalization and experiences. So this is creating the different profiles within Personalize. So you can create these profiles and then map them to content and basically have, what you would have as a similar experience within as profile cards within CDP and Personalize. And then engagement and Path Analyzer. So this, I actually moved into, so this is from CDP and Personalize. You can see your different groups and how they are engaging on your site, whether that's conversions or your funnel as they move through the funnel. And then this even shows like how they might look into future travel dates. Or you can, and you can complement that with GA4. So GA4 has the concept of engagement rate in here and the ability to track an engaged session and showcase, engaged sessions per user. So you can combine these two tools to get the effect of engagement within that you currently have in XP, and also create explorations. You can have your funnel exploration and your path exploration within GA4 as well. All right, and that's it in terms of moving from XP to CDP and Personalize. And here's some info if you want to connect with me and talk about it some more and your experiences with it.
Thanks, Jana. I'm really happy that I'm a Penelope.
That's great. That's great.
Because, I don't know, it reminds me of Penelope Pitstop from Wacky Races, and she always had the best outfits. Anyhow, does anybody have any questions for any of our three very different but all interesting presenters? No questions? Okay, I mean, of course, you can always reach out to them one-on-one. I want to thank them. I found each of them really interesting, and I definitely learned something from each of those presentations. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for turning up. The recording will be available if you want to share it with somebody, and of course, the recording of the EMEA, Americas one will also be available and posted. And do let us know about webinar topics for next year. I'm very keen. Don't hesitate to be slightly self-interested. If there's something that you think that you would like to present on, then do let us know, because if you want to present on it, then probably other people do too. So reach out. Happy to chat, and thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day / evening, depending on where you are. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.